I'm joined with my old pal, John Mark Staude from Riverside Resources. John Mark, it's great to see you again.
It's great to be here with you, Steve.
So here we are, we're at the Rule Symposium 2025. Last year, you were my first interview at the Rule Symposium 2024. And I asked you, what was the buzz at the conference? This year, what's the buzz at the conference?
For this year, it's amazing that there's a whole bunch of new people attending, and it's different this year in that now people are really positive. I've had so many people come this year and say their portfolio is doing well. Last year, people were really struggling. This year, the market's been up, and so it's so cool. Gold price has been so high. People are feeling good, and they're really excited about the sector, and the money is flowing, and people are happier as investors.
Now, I remember chatting with you. We had recently met at that time, but this was probably 2021, maybe 2022. And gold was up, it was above the 2000 mark. And you said that you thought that it was feeling a bit toppy and you were expecting it to pull back a bit. And then it did, which it felt like when all that money printing started at the beginning of the pandemic, that it was game on, and Bank of America had that $3,000 price target. So I thought we were going to go a lot higher. We didn't. Do you get a sense that we're getting a little toppy here, or do you think that this is the beginning of a big leg up?
I don't think, last time I felt it was toppy, the instability, and so now I think there's a lot more up, because the wildness, the big beautiful bill, the global politics, the US politics, the Trump and those situations for me makes very much of instability and a lot of confusion and complexity. So I think gold is a store of value, and so now I feel it's actually going up. And I think also that the Basel III, making gold now a tier 1 asset, really appreciating physicalness. I also have always been feeling physical gold, knowing how hard it is to get. And I've gone to get physical coins and couldn't. And that wasn't really available and was difficult. And physical gold is so different than paper gold. So I think as people started to take physical gold, it's going up, and as different groups. So I think there's a real on for gold, and gold, truly people want it now. Different than last time, which I think was not really so much global confusion and complexity as today.
It's funny, I was watching CNBC this morning and they had on Steve Eisman, who was famous for The Big Short, one of the guys who called the 2008 housing bubble. And he was talking about this idea that the US dollar is going to collapse and that the treasury market's yields are going to soar, and how it's just ridiculous. If you look at the price of the treasuries, it's not going to happen. And his whole thesis was there just is no replacement for US treasuries right now in terms of asset classes. I think that, like, right now we're at a gold conference, and the sentiment would be very different than how Steve Eisman feels. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think gold really can become a mainstream sort of challenger or more popular than treasuries?
No, I think treasuries, I mean, this is really big numbers with bonds, and treasuries is a whole big giant. That's a Super Bowl. And gold and this other stuff, although it's interesting, it's a small conference. It's a really, here we live in this little thing. I do think that gold is real and has intrinsic value, but I think treasuries are the way that people do, governments trade and deal with it. I do feel that has to go up. I think that there's a lot of pressure, and people are pulling, corporations and governments are pulling out of the US dollar and trying to pull away. And I think what US is doing in terms of putting on tariffs and other things is actually pushing away business. And I think that definitely China is trying to get away from treasuries. So it is making it difficult, but I don't think it's going to replace gold. We're not going back to Byzantine world where gold's replacing. I don't think so. I think that it's totally other, it's more, we're in magnitudes of difference in scale.
All right, so let's talk about Riverside. We've been interviewing you for 5 years now, since we started doing video. You guys recently did a spin out of Blue Jay. Let's start off talking about Blue Jay. What's happening there? When's it going to go public? What's the story evolved into? What can you tell us?
So when we started doing videos 5 years ago, Riverside diversified into creating what's now Blue Jay. Riverside went from Mexico into Ontario. And you said, Jean-Marc, why are you leaving Mexico?
Yeah, well, and at that time you guys spun out Capitan, which
Exactly.
has been a monster of recent.
And that was it has been a monster by recent. I'm still the chairman, still a large shareholder, haven't sold any shares. My house is looking really good. I'm really happy. My wife's driving a new car. It's good. And so things are good. But so Capitan's been a monster. And that was part of the transition that created what's Blue Jay. I didn't realize we actually were able to move ahead with Blue Jay, which was our Ontario portfolio. Fast forward 5 years to today, we now have spun that out to shareholders at a 5-to-1 ratio, and that's excellent. And now it'll get listed. And Blue Jay has now added an additional Yukon large resource asset to it, which further adds to the value at a very nice deal for that. And so for us as Riverside shareholders, it's another win, and it helps Riverside to again show how it dividends to shareholders the real value out of the company and unlocks the value. And it's interesting, you know, Riverside share price is higher now that we've spun out Blue Jay than when we had the whole entire inn, and now Blue Jay is valued at more than all the value of Riverside. It's just a really crazy world. And so it's really crazy about valuations.
Why do you think that is? I mean,
I just, people penalize for the collective value. They don't really appreciate. So people want returns today, and they don't really see the value of these corporations, the value of the engine. And Riverside spun out Capitan. Capitan's now 10 times more of the market cap of Riverside. It's just crazy. And that's one asset, and we have a 1% royalty on that. But it's really, so Riverside has real intrinsic value. So I'll work on the next one, move it ahead. And so we're continually doing that. We found this is a great way to create shareholder value. It's a way that Ross Beatty and Lucas Lundin also created value by spinning out companies from the central corporation. NGX is an example of that.
So let me ask you this. For anybody watching this trying to really understand what Riverside does here, you're basically cooking up companies from scratch and spinning them out as dividends to shareholders, which is a very interesting way. If you look at the last 10 years of returns of the company, you can't just look at the share price, because if you held it for 10 years, you're going to have shares in Blue Jay, you're going to have shares in Capitan. So you're putting together these companies basically often from staking, sometimes from small deals, and then you're going to add value to them. So how much time do you spend on the field a year? Are you out there banging rocks half the year?
You know, it's great because you guys came out and did your first deep dive video with us, and you came out and I mean, you guys trained up and got ready to go, and really it was wonderful. And so yeah, I'm out on the road a lot, and I spend half my road time is in the field, the other half the road time is out meeting investors, being at conferences like this. But you're not going to make a mine, you're not going to find it a project living at home or being in a city. So out there on the ground with our team, it's a team. And so having groups working in British Columbia, teams working in the Yukon, teams working in Mexico. So yeah, a lot of time on the road, and it's good to be out there. I'm not just breaking rocks, I'm with the guys that are breaking rocks, giving coaching. And you know, I'm in a lot of Zoom meetings now where I'm reviewing the data because I've been in the field with them. We're actually are looking at the maps live and reviewing that and discussing nightly now what they're seeing and what they're doing. And so it's really, I'm full on, it's good. I'm drinking a lot of coffee, but it's a lot of fun.
So one of the areas that I think we could say you specialize in or have specialized in is Mexico. There's been a lot of talk about Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum was supposed to be not very pro-mining, then everybody was saying she was very pro-mining. Now the latest is maybe she's not so pro-mining. Tell me what's happening here. Break this down for us.
So yeah, I think Sheinbaum is part of the Morena Party. The Morena Party really follows from AMLO. And so for me, in my interpretation, she's a continuation of those same policies. Also, AMLO brought her in and supported her in being elected. So it's difficult for her to go against it. So it's a continuation. And so it makes it quite predictable. And fundamentally, Mexico has been a mining country. Fundamentally, mining is good for Mexico, and they want mining. They're simply trying to meet societal interest, environmental interest, and particularly around communities and what it should be. So if you can address those issues, it's okay. So she's saying different things, but really none of it's actually law. The law was passed in 2023. Many people challenged that law, and those challenges have not yet been resolved. And so for ourselves, for example, we're still under an amparo, means a block of us even having to comply with that law. And thousands of other companies also challenged the law. So what I think the way to simply understand is that Mexico wants to act, wants to do things. If you can do it environmentally consciously with the community on side or understanding, it's able to move ahead. We've got drill permits. We're drilling right now. We're able to do exploration. We've gotten mineral titles. not new mineral titles, but mineral titles transferred. We've been able to help bail out people that haven't paid taxes. And so it works. And so I think the on the ground things work. What the politicians are saying is a lot of politicalness.
Okay. And I always look at it because last year we went down to the Santa Elena mine, owned and operated by First Majestic. And you see all the jobs and all the families that get supported by that. It's not a tiny number. And even the local towns, it's hard to wrap your head around this idea that the communities wouldn't collectively as a whole want these projects to move forward.
Particularly when you went to Santa Elena, that's in the state of Sonora. Sonora is like the state of Nevada for the United States, or it's like Quebec or something for Canada. It's the mining center. And so for Mexico, 38% of all the mineral wealth comes from that one state. So ourselves, we work in that state. And so you're totally right. And so we get permits and people are working and they want to do it. So what you hear in the politics and what you hear on the policies from Mexico City, like you saw, the impact of Santa Elena, it's great. And you guys have been working with First Majestic and seeing those projects, and we're working on those types. So we're very close to Santa Elena, in fact. We're just 20 kilometers away.
So talking about projects in Mexico, let's get into what's happening right now with Quest Corp and with Riverside and the Union Project, which of course we know intimately. Our very first DD on the go was on that specific project. What's happening there?
It was so great doing the DD on the go with you guys, because you guys, that was the first time we had done any video out there. And right now we're doing more video. We're doing a lot of work. Right now we just completed the geophysics and we just put out a news release about that. The geophysics are helping us to see what's happening with the carbonate replacement deposit, CRD. Those are the big deposits in Mexico. Peter McGaw, Mag Silver, these big deposits that have made Mexico this huge mining country. That is the style. So what's happening for us at the Union Project is exploration getting ready for drilling. Next month we'll be drilling. We have the drill targets coming along. Everything is permitted to drill. We have the money in the bank. We're simply working on refining the targets. Super excited. I've been in the field there. I'll be at the end of the month back there again, breaking the rocks, and then we'll have the drill rig turning. So I get there a lot. It's good.
Okay. Last question for you about Riverside. You guys have some stuff going on in BC. What can you tell us there?
You know, BC is excellent. We have two different focuses. One is on rare earth elements. We really see what's happening in China around nationalization and control of rare earth elements. And so if in Canada, we can have good projects in Canada, we don't want to build a mine, but if we can own good projects that are accessible in southern British Columbia, that would be great for Canada, for the world, for North America. So Riverside's been building up rare earth element projects, and we're in the field right now. Secondly is gold. We're acquiring new projects, going forward on our various projects. For us, British Columbia builds out a whole portfolio. We built out Blue Jay, we put together a portfolio, and that was great. We're now doing that in Canada, now in British Columbia. So really excited about that. We live in British Columbia, super easy, low cost, able to get out there.
All right, well, John, Mark, thanks very much for hopping on here. It's always a pleasure when we get to catch up. And I hope you guys have a very successful next year. And when we sit down at the Rule Symposium 2026, you're telling us about some massive drill results at the Union Project. And you make shareholders like me a lot of money.
That'd be awesome. Me too. That's great. Thanks a lot.